see so many smiling faces in the audience. Really thank you all for coming. My name is Chip Kuperman, and I want to welcome you on behalf of the Shuswap Environmental Action Society in Kairos. My little show here is called Ancient Rainforests at Risk. And it's about the endangered caribou habitat that's in danger of being logged in the Upper Seymour. Okay, mountain caribou are the most endangered animals in North America, the mammals. There's only 1,600 remaining, and there were once thousands of them. And they actually came down to lower elevations. In the Upper Seymour Valley provides key habitat, and the existing protected area up there is not sufficient to keep these animals alive. So the greatest threat is from logging, and it removes both the food sources and provides an avenue for predators, particularly wolves, to munch on the caribou. And basically what happens is when the area is logged, then all the underbrush grows up, the young plants come in, and the moose go, oh, there's some great munching to be had there. And when the moose come, then the wolves follow them. And the caribou come down as well into that area. And they're not used to wolves at all. So they just become, they just get toasted by the wolves, basically, is what's happening. So most of the information from this set of slides comes from Eddie Petroshin, and he works with Wild Sight in the East Kootenays. And he's done some amazing work, and his organization used to be called the East Kootenay Environmental Society. And he's been coming out, last year he was in the valley for a few times. And his work has been featured in 2 online articles in the Narwhal. So if you haven't seen that publication, I strongly suggest that you have a look at it. It's an excellent environmental journal online. So this is the area we're talking about. It's the Seymour River, of course, flows into Seymour Arm. And if you keep going up that river, you'll get right to the end, and that's where we protected the Upper Seymour Provincial Park. But that, even though it's something like 11,000 hectares, it's mostly rock and ice. So we did protect some significant old-growth forests, but it's not sufficient to keep the caribou alive. And there's a photo of the Upper Seymour, the park, and it was designated in 2001 after a huge amount of work by the Shuswap Environmental Action Society. Now, below the park, it's been logged quite a bit, and most of that logging occurred before the park was created. Now, you probably heard this a couple of years ago in 2021, the government of British Columbia announced all these deferrals about old growth. And we thought, oh, great, they're going to save some more old growth. Well, we got a hold of the maps. And as it turns out, when you look at the maps, the deferral areas are actually, many of them are either in the park or already protected as old growth management areas. So they're really pulling a fast one on the public. Oh, we're going to protect all this land. Well, quite a bit of it is already protected. So this is what a clear cut looks like in caribou habitat. There's not much left for the caribou. And the Upper Seymour, much of it looked like this, but it's growing back now. And that's the key point here. So the roads are greening up in the Upper Seymour, and the trees are starting to grow that they planted there, and thus it's the moose aren't really able to get in there, and thus the wolves aren't going in there, and so more caribou are now using the area. So now there's going to be 4 maps that show the proposed logging. So if you study the map, you can see where the proposed cut blocks are. There's also additional land that was protected for the caribou, but it's not sufficient. So if these areas get logged, then it gets opened up and the wolves get in there. So this is the Mid-Seymour, and the dark, or the really strong green there, that's the park. If you go on YouTube, we shot a video in the Upper Seymour about 8-10 years ago, and it's called Journey to the Upper Seymour, and it'll give you a really good idea of what it's like up there. So this logging would be outside the Seymour Valley, but still in caribou habitat. And now this is an interesting image, and if you look at it closely, every one of those dots is where a caribou was determined to be. The caribou are radio collared, and so they send out a signal, and then they can determine where those signals are coming from. And so according to the color, it tells you when the caribou were there. And then the blocks are shown in brown. So you can get a really good idea of what the area looks like now from this map. And this map looks up the valley towards the park. So you can see where the cut blocks are that are greening up. You can see where they want to log some more. And you can see where the caribou have been. And so last year, Eddie brought in a lichenologist, and he had identified some lichens up there that are very rare. And they're right in these blocks that they want to log. And there's not very many of these lichens left. I was fortunate to get these photos of these lichens from Trevor Goward, who lives up in Wellsbury Park. And if you don't know this already, but there's thousands of species of lichens. I have 2 books at home, and they're literally, each book is about this thick, and there's a page for every different kind of lichen. It's an incredibly diverse organism. So the 2 companies, LP stands for Louisiana Pacific, and that was actually purchased by this other company recently. And BC Timber Sales, which is a government company, they plan to log 620 hectares of ancient cedar hemlock forest in the Upper Seymour. And these areas, as I explained, are finally recovering from previous clear cutting. So this puts the caribou at risk, as well as the rich biodiversity of this increasingly rare ecosystem. This is an interior rainforest, and there's so few hectares of this forest left. There was never very much interior rainforest to begin with. And of course, after decades of logging, there's so little left. And these trees were painted, as you can see, they're painted and marked as to be ready to be logged. So, unfortunately, there's little we can do, although there is a letter writing campaign, and I hope you can all get involved, and I'll explain how you can do that. And as the way power politics works in this province right now, it's really First Nations that have the leverage. And luckily, the Splatsin are adamantly opposed to this logging. So we're on the same side, and they're doing everything they can. And things are slowing down, like the blocks haven't progressed yet. It's not like they're going to be logging it in the spring, but it's still a big concern. There's one other avenue for protest and trying to stop this logging, and that's direct action. And there's an organization in Revelstoke called the Old Growth Revolution. And mostly young people. No, there's some older people there as well. And they were successful to help stop some logging closer to Revelstoke and similar habitat. And in this photo, there's some members of the Splatsine Nation as well. So they, and the chief, the former chief of the Splatsine was there as well, supporting them. So these are two trees in the Upper Seymour Provincial Park. On the left is the Seymour Giant, and Terry's going to be talking about that tree in his talk, and it's in his book. And that was the tree that helped us save that park. And on the right is another massive tree in the park. So there's trees like this in the blocks that could be logged if it goes ahead. Let's hope not. So basically, for the sake of the caribou, biodiversity, and even climate protection, these remaining ancient forests must remain standing. To take action, visit wildsite.ca and follow the links for caribou. A Shuswap Environmental Action Society presentation. Visit seas.ca to learn more.